Today, I want to speak a little bit about being a giver, which I did touch on Shabbat. And giving isn't only about money, but it's about a personality. Okay? If you want any relationship to work, you have to be able to give in order for the relationship to work. You have to take also. There's a great friend of mine, Rabbi Klatzkel, who's a great rabbi. He says, real givers, even when they take, they're giving. We'll wait for the cry to finish. Okay. Real givers, even when they take, they're giving. And real takers, even when they give, they're taking. Okay, so it's not about whether you give or not. You know, like sometimes if someone comes to your house and you really want to give to them something and they say no, then you don't get a chance to connect. You know, or you go into an interview and they ask you Coke, water, and you say, nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm good is not a way. You want to get into that interview, like get a chance to connect to the person, take the drink. Say, oh, that's so nice, thank you, I'll take some water, or whatever. You don't want to be heavy on the guy, you don't want to order a big drink, whatever. But take something. That's going to be a way to connect. So when you allow someone to give to you, sometimes that's also giving. So sometimes you can take and you can give, but you have to think and ask yourself, am I giving or am I taking? And we are all always giving and taking at all times. Okay? Why am I talking about this? Because we are coming up to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and that's all about change. It's all about reflection. Judaism says that you can't just go through life and expect things to change for you. You got to do something yourself. Okay, so we are a big, in our religion, we believe very much that you've got to do your first step. And that's why it's really important when it comes to change. Change could be with a small thing. What does it say? Listen to this. It says, when it comes to being a giver, every penny makes a difference. I'll tell you the quote. This is what the Talmud says. When it comes to being a giver, but it's not only about money. Don't think of it only as money. It says like this. There's a verse in Isaiah which says, Vayilbash tzedakah kashirion. That tzedakah is like an armor jacket. It's like a jacket of armor. You know, in those days you'd fight. They'd have a metal nowadays also. But then there was these jackets that they would wear with many layers on it. And it says like this: just like a armor jacket has to have many pieces to it. It's not just one piece. It has to have many layers. If it wants to not allow things to penetrate through it, it needs to be extremely thick, and it has to have many layers. So it says, just like it has many layers, which is what makes it the armor jacket, it can't be just one layer. It has to be made with multiple layers and multiple materials. So too tzedakah. When someone gives a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more, that adds up to a great amount of money. So it says, Kol pruta upruta mitztarefet lecheshbon gadol. Every little bit you give can add up to huge amounts. Don't think, oh, I'm only going to give $1. And the other person says, oh, I'm only going to give $1. And say, oh, that's nothing. No. Every bit that everyone gives adds up to a lot. But that applies to yourself also. That applies to yourself, that when you become a giver, even if you say, okay, I'm going to give 1 minute of my time to myself this morning. I'm going to say modeh ani. You can give to yourself also. Giving to yourself is different than taking. I'm going to give a minute to somebody. That is small in your eyes, but it adds up to something massive. See, that's what it says, that when it comes to becoming a giver, every little bit adds up to a lot amount. So it says, like, for instance, this is a great rabbi told me like this. He says, the Talmud also says that when it comes to giving, it's a little bit, but it can be treated like hundreds. What does that mean? That because when it comes to taking, what you have is what you've taken. That's it. You take $20 and you put it in your pocket, It doesn't accumulate. That's it. If you consume it, it's gone. But when it comes to giving, that goes so much further than you can even imagine. The fruits and the outcome of being a giver is so much further. That's why it says, Din pruta kedin mea. Whenever you give, even a small amount, it can be considered like thousands. Why? Because let's say, imagine somebody's poor and doesn't have money, like the homeless guy that was in shul the other day. I don't know how he got in, but he was in shul and he asked me for some money. So I said, okay, this time I'm going to give. He came to shul, I gave him some dollars, and you never know what that dollar can do. That dollar could be now something which is enough for him to now buy a little bit of protein and sit down and have a good meal on Shabbat. And with that, he's going to make a bracha on it, if he does. So that's another thing that right? So you've got the bracha, you've got the protein, you've got the strength that I'm giving him, and with that strength, he's going to maybe feel a little better. And the outcome of your action, that's what it means, that giving is powerful. Giving is powerful because every small penny, in terms of the external, can have such a huge ripple effect. When you have $20 in your pocket, you take it, you're done. That's it. But when you give, it's not $20. You don't even know where that's going, how many layers of outcome that's going to bring, right? So that's why giving is so much more enjoyable in terms of your soul. Your body enjoys taking, but your soul enjoys giving so much more. And when it comes to change, it's all about giving, okay? And I'm not talking about only giving money. So why is giving so important in Judaism? Because it makes you like God. Okay? And in Jewish teaching, we, especially on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we read the 13 ways of God. Do you know what they're called? 13 Yud Gimel Midot Harachamim. The 13 ways of mercy that God has. There's a book, a Kabbalistic book, written by Rav Moshe Cordovero. And it's what's it called? Tomed Dvorah. And in the first chapter of his book, he writes 13 different ways that God has mercy that we would never understand. Only if you read his book. It's unbelievable. And what's the point of saying it? Because when you say it, you're going to be like God. It makes you more godly. So giving is a godly act because God is infinite according to Jewish teaching. Taking is not, because you're limited. My friends, I want to tell you that every time you give, that is the most godly thing. I want to tell you, this is unbelievable. We know the story, I don't know if I've told some of you here before, but this is the story of Abraham. And we're told as kids that Abraham was in the tent, and there were 3 guests, and they were coming to him, and he was like, whoa, and he runs to them. What does it tell me? He was talking to God at that time. He was actually speaking to God at that time. Abraham was having a prophecy. He was speaking to God. And he's like, wait. I've got guests coming. And he runs off. He leaves his communication with God and runs off to get his guests. What are you doing? If you're talking to God, why will you run and bring in your guests? What are you doing? You're talking to Hashem. That's the greatest feeling ever. So what does it say? It says, Gadol, Achnasat Orchim, something on these lines, Gadol Gemilut Chasadim, Yoter Mikabalat Pnei HaShechina. It's greater to be kind than to be with God. It's greater to be kind than to be around God. That's what Judaism thinks. Why? Because it's greater to be like God than to be with God. That's Judaism. Right? There's other religions, we wouldn't talk about them. What's their faith? It's better to be with God, kill yourself and blow yourself up or whatever, right? It's better to be with God than be like God. No, Judaism doesn't say that. It says live like God. It's much greater than being with God. You don't need to be with God. That will happen when you pass. But whilst you're in this world, you could do something so great, you've got no idea. And that's being like God. You could choose to give. You could choose to give someone time. So he says, Hashem, sorry, I got to go. And he leaves God's presence to go and get guests and to feed them. That's Judaism. Whilst you're in this world, we don't need you, to be with God. You're not holy, you're not spiritual if you're in a closed room and you're just going like this. That's not spiritual. Do you know what spiritual is? Spiritual is when you are acting godly. When you're being like God. People don't get it. They think that's why people hate this idea of God. The minute you say God, people are like, they feel sick a little bit. You know, they get nauseous. They get a disease called religiosis. They call it, right? They get this disease called religiosis. They're afraid of being called religious. But you don't get it. Judaism doesn't want you to hang out with God. It wants you to be like God much more. Do you get what I'm saying? Being like God is greater than, whilst you're in this world, than being with God. How do you be like God? Well, there are 13 attributes of mercy. Just like He's merciful, you need to be merciful. Okay, so for instance, Hashem, chafetz chesed hu, is one of the things that God does. He wants to find a good in you. We are alive. Who's pumping my heart right now? According to me, right? Not according to the atheist. According to the religious rabbi, who's pumping my heart? Hashem, right? I ate food. My heart is pumping 100,000 times a day. Boop, 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 boop. It doesn't stop for a minute. And you know what happens when your phone runs out and it's out of battery and it's dying? What do? Quickly, charge it. And if it's too hot, what do? Oh no, maybe it should go off for a while. Your body can't go off. It can't. You wouldn't live. It's pumping every however many years you are right now, that's how many years it's been working. It didn't sleep. You sleep, but when you sleep, oh boy, there's a whole world going on in there. Right? At least in my world. Okay? I snore, whatever. That's okay, I don't snore. But it's got to make the class exciting. Okay, people are falling asleep over here. Hashem wants your kindness. He looks. So what does it mean? There's many things that God does. We're going to learn about these things. Unbelievable. One of them is He lets you breathe. He lets you think. And then you go and do the wrong thing. Can you imagine a dad that watches his child with the money you give the child? The child wants the money, takes the money, and then goes and burns it on the worst things possible. And the dad says, okay, you know what? He's going to grow. He holds back, doesn't jump straight away, gives the child time. That's what God does to us every year. That's what we have. That's our life. We are fed, our heart is pumping. We don't think about it, but we're alive, our heart is pumping, our energy's going, everything's happening. And sometimes we do the wrong things that we shouldn't be doing. And yet, there's so much love coming my way, even if I'm not perfect. But we just think, no way, for sure, I'm the worst Jew. Have you ever heard of a bad Jew? Podcast. Have you heard of the Bad Jew podcast? You should hear of it. It's one of the Ashlit guys. His name is Chaz Volk. And he opened a podcast called Bad Jew. I'm a bad Jew. What do we tell you? That's false. You are creating that image in your head. But the fact that you're still alive and the fact that your heart is pumping, well, God believes in you. Your heart is pumping. You're still around. Right? Do you know how much love is happening to your body whilst you're alive? There's like tons of it. So you're here running around, doing your thing, waking up every morning, and you say, I'm a bad Jew. God believes in you because He kept you alive. But He still wants us to return. He wants us to come back. So there are many, many things that when we read about the way that God works, then we're meant to say, well, how should that teach me how I should be? What does that mean for me? It's not just saying, Judaism is not just like, God works in this way. He forgives me you. And therefore what? Therefore I should be that way too. That's what it means. Whenever you hear something about God, it's if He does that to me, that's what I should be doing as well. So that's why it's very important during this time of the year, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and growth, a lot of the prayer is learning what God does for me. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I do my part to connect to my beloved, my Creator, and see the love that's happening in my life. And then suddenly it will reciprocate, comes back to me. But you have to choose to see the love in your life, in your world. Many people don't choose to see the love. Right? What do? They choose to see All the problems, right? Every time something doesn't work out, oi. Every time I lose some money, oi. Every time right? But it's not happening all the time. So when it comes to this time of the year, it's about seeing the love that's happening in your life. Ani ledodi v'dodili. I'm for my beloved. The Creator is called my beloved. That's the month that we're in, Elul. It's interesting. That's how a relationship works. When does a relationship start becoming toxic?
When you're broke?
Really?
I don't know.
You need a hug.
So, if you don't have money, has there ever been a good relationship amongst two people that never had money? Do you believe that can happen?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? What happened to all you need is love? Huh? People can love each other even without money. Okay? But we can achieve love by one thing and it can fall apart by one thing. Love is achieved by noticing the positive of the other, feeling one with them, and fighting and bickering and problems come from the opposite, noticing all the problems in the other. Do you know that it says in Jewish teaching, if there's somebody that you marry, right, which hopefully that's going to happen to everyone, if you're married and there's something that your spouse does that you don't like, you shouldn't look at it. You know this? There's certain things that no one's perfect. If there's something they do that's not attractive to you, you actually should turn away. Don't allow your eyes to see it. Because no one's perfect, right? So let's say you marry someone, you're like, wow, she's amazing, or he's amazing, they have so many qualities, but they walk a little funny and it bothers me. Let's say. Okay? So, huh? You've been there? Okay. Walk a little funny and it bothers me. You can achieve love with that person because no one's going to be perfect. On condition, you turn away from the funny walk. Okay? Don't allow somebody to make a comment. And I don't mean don't allow them to make a comment and say, hey, you're messing with you're messing with my girl. All right? Not that type of thing. I'm saying if they throw in a toxic comment about that person that you love, you must run away from it. Run a mile away from that toxicity. It's dangerous. It's horrible. Run away. Oh, you're poisoning my life. There's a great Rabbi Jack Melul, who's walking down the street and somewhere in New York, and someone was complaining about the weather, which I don't blame them. But they were complaining about the weather, and Rabbi Miller was walking, and he's all about simcha. He's all about being happy. So what did he do? He ran. He's an old man. He was in his old age. He's already an old man, and he's with his students, and he hears some comment about the weather. He starts running. They've never seen him run like this before. Can you imagine? The running rabbi, beard, hat. Wah! He's running all the way down the street. They're like, where are you going? They run after him. He says, I couldn't. Toxic language. I don't want to hear the negativity of the world because it will get to me and it's poison. It will ruin my simcha. So also, when it comes to a relationship, why does a relationship fail? When you were dating that girl, right? Oh, you ate with such honor, with respect. The way you ate that chicken. Never in your life did you eat a wing directly from the plate, right? I mean, every time you eat wings, I've seen you eat those wings, with your fingers, and then suddenly you're on that date. You take out your napkins, you're cutting through the wings slowly. Who cuts wings with a fork and knife anyway? You eat it straight up. But this guy, suddenly he's dating, he's a mensch, right? And he's all acting, he's on a great show. And then after a few dates, after a few months, what happens? He takes her chicken wing and grabs it and puts it in his mouth, after being so polite. Suddenly it all comes out. So what happened? Right? Or a person's all polite, he's nice, he opens the door for her, right? He's on a date. Psh, what a mensch. He runs quick. How dare she even open a door for herself? I'm going to be the mensch and open the door for her. So he does that on his first date, on the second date, and then the third. And by the time they get to marriage, open the door yourself. Right? That's it. I'm not opening that door. Right? So why does that happen? Why does that happen in marriages? 50%, over 50% of marriages are now ending up in divorce. They didn't marry like that. They went into that ceremony, the wedding ceremony, and they were all happy with each other, right? Smiling. Do you love it? Do you? Yes, yes. Will you? Yes, of course. And the dancing and the music and the whole show, external to the whole world, $100,000 wedding to make a nice fuss. Why would anyone do that? Unless you really love that person. Of course you love that person. So how did it suddenly turn away from being so, because I see a lot of relationships that turn, they go so down to a point of so much anger and hate and pain and resentment. But that never started like that. Oh, at the beginning it was all a great show. So how did it end up like that? What happened? Yeah, what happens is you get used to the person, you live with them, and then you start noticing this fault. Then someone else tells you from outside, oh, I don't like how the way she says this. Oh, and then your mom throws another comment, and then it builds up. And then there's a whole list of comments in the back of your head subconsciously about this person that you're dating. And you're like, oh, maybe that is true. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. And you have a list of 1,000 problems, and until eventually you tell your date, you open the door now. I'm not opening the door for you. And then it ends up to downhill. Okay? So that's how a relationship goes downhill. It starts off in a very, very high place, but it can end up going on a very down place. It goes down like a spiral. Right? It starts off with one problem. You notice the other problem, the walking funny, then the mom, then this, then that. It goes down and down and down until there's no respect for each other. And then the relationship ends. So how does it work in Judaism as well? Also with Judaism. Same thing. What's the holiest book in Judaism? Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. What's it about? It's all about love. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. That's where we say it. I am for my beloved's for me. It's all about love. Yishakeni minishikot piu, we say. Shir HaShirim Asher Shlomo. The Song of Songs which Solomon wrote. And how does it start off? Yishakeni minishikot piu. May God kiss me with the kiss of his mouth. Why do we kiss with our mouth? When you feel like a real connection to someone, why do you kiss with your mouth? Huh? Disney. They taught us. I'll tell you something. My little baby Miriam never saw a Disney movie, as far as I know. She's a little baby. She still does, right? She's starting. What is it? The answer is very simple. This is the Kabbalistic deep meaning of Shir HaShirim, because your mouth is where you express something very deep from inside you. Okay? That's the place where your internal expressions come out. And that's the place where you feel you want to touch someone. Yishakeni minishikot piu. That's how, with Torah especially, when someone studies Torah so much, what happens? You want to kiss the book also, right? Okay, I'm giving you all these ideas now. But that's the song, Shir HaShirim. The Song of Songs. And what, to the point where Rabbi Akiva, he read all the books. Rabbi Akiva was the greatest of the greats. But whenever he came to Shir HaShirim, whenever he came to Song of Songs, he would cry. And he would say, this book is the holiest of holies. So like in Israel, the holiest place is Jerusalem. And the holiest place in Jerusalem is the temple. And the holiest place in the temple was the Holy of Holies. And what was in the Holy of Holies? The Ark. Right? The cherubim. And that was the holiest place in Judaism. Says Rabbi Akiva, just like the holiest place in Judaism was the Holy of Holies, that's a space. The holiest book in Judaism was Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. And it's a song about a love between God. It sounds like a song of love between a man and a woman. But it really is a love relationship between us and God as well. And that's the story. That's the reason, by the way, why many, many Jews understood very deeply how to be really good in relationships also. Because when you're strong with your relationship with God, you learn how to have a relationship with somebody else in this world also. It goes hand in hand. Okay, so that's why many, many rabbis are great therapists for marriage. They're great marriage counselors. Why? Because when you have a really good relationship with Hashem, you're able to also learn and have a great relationship with humans, and the same way. If you have a good relationship with humans, you are also a very godly person. Okay? So my point is that in Judaism, ani ledodi v'dodi li, which means that we are about doing our part in seeing the positive of God. Ani ledodi, I have to see my beloved, not see all the problems that go through my day. If I do, I'm never going to enjoy my life. I need to find the positive in every day. And if I hear any negativity, just like I would if I heard it about my spouse, I would run away. If anyone tells me something negative about someone I love, whether it's my kids or my wife or any, I run away. I don't want to hear it. Because that's toxic words that get to your head. That's not healthy. And then it comes out. So the same is with our life. You must run away from toxic energy. And you know what? Toxic energy could be online. It could be going on social media. It could be hearing all the stuff that they say about Jews. It could be, don't look at it. Run away from it. Whether it's on whatever websites they're in, right? On social media, run away. Don't even look. When you don't look, then none of that toxic energy comes to you and you're able to see your beloved. So that's this month that we're in. It's a month of Ani Ledodi. I'm going to start seeing my relationship with God as my love, not as a relationship of only problems. And when I do, Dodi Li, I'll see the love come back to me. Okay, but I did actually want to speak about 3 things that we change. We change in 3 areas. It says for your Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to become a better Jew. What are the 3 things we change? We say one of them is praying to God. That's one thing we change. Tefillah, tshuva, which means saying, I want to be a better Jew. I want to forget and move on and leave all my mistakes that I've made. And finally, tzedakah, charity. So I want to talk about charity for a second. Okay? Now, there's some interesting things. I want to, because we're talking to a young professional crowd, listen to what it says when it comes to giving charity. Did you know that one of the greatest forms of charity is, this is something you never think of. It blew my mind. I saw it last week in the Torah, and I was like, wow. It is setting someone up. Did you know that? The Torah considers a great form of charity by finding a friend that is looking for a date, and not you just setting them up just with a date, but setting them up, helping them find someone and getting married. Do you know that that's the greatest form of tzedakah? One of the greatest forms. How do I know that? Because God did it to Adam. He said Adam had everything, but there was one thing he was missing. Adam, by the way, was a male, female. But there was one thing he was missing. Right? What was he missing? A spouse. Somebody to live with. He was alone. And God said, Lo tov v'yot ha'adam levado. He had everything. He had all the food. He had all the money. There was one thing he was lacking. And that was a spouse. And for that reason, it says, listen to this. It says like this. It says, you should open your hand. Patoach tiftach. You should open your hand if you have a poor person in your town. Open your hand to him, or even lend him money or her money. Because sometimes people don't have money. They don't want to take money, but they would take a loan. Okay, so it says, or lend them money to exactly as much as they are missing. Okay, Asher yechsar lo. Whatever that person was missing, and it says the word lo. Lo means if in Judaism, whenever you see a word, you have to say, oh, where's that word first shown? Where is it first seen? Because everything goes to the beginning. Like Rosh Hashanah, Rosh doesn't just mean the beginning, it means the head. The head is the start. Everything goes to the beginning. You know that if you want to know, let's say, what the word love means, go and look in the Torah and see where love is the first time mentioned. If you want to know what good means, go to the beginning of the Torah and see what good means. Okay? And then when you see that word the first time, you can learn a tremendous amount of the word good. It's just like taking a seed and putting it in the ground. Okay? When the tree starts growing, at the beginning, that's when you can manipulate it the most. That's when you could change it the most. Right? As it grows more and more, then it doesn't make as much of a difference. But when you start at the beginning, if you take a seed from the ground and you manipulate it, you change it a little bit, whilst it's there, then you'll destroy the tree, or you can have a huge effect on the whole future of that tree. Right? So the beginning is something which is in Jewish teaching the source of everything. So the beginning of the Torah is the first few words that you'll find the beginning of many ideas. And one of the ideas is the word lo, for him or for her. Okay, lo in this context meant for Adam. Lo was for him. What does it say? God said, the first time he says the word lamed vav, which means to him, to Adam, it says, E'eseh lo ezel kenegdo. I'll make for him a spouse. So the word for him, or someone for you, perfect for you, just for you, right? The perfect spouse for you, that is your soulmate that you will marry one day. That is the first word that you see in the Torah was lo. And here, when it says that you should give money to that person, it says, give money to the person that's missing, lo, to him. So the rabbis say lo means a wife or a spouse. Okay? If somebody is looking for a spouse, that's the greatest form of tzedakah. As we say, E'eseh lo ezer kenegdo. Listen to this. Are you ready? This is a crazy Talmud. The rabbis say like this in the Talmud in Shabbat, that when a person dies, they ask you a number of questions. Does anyone know what questions they ask you? You go up to Shamayim, you go up to the next world, and they ask you a bunch of questions. That's the first one. Everyone knows that one. Were you honest in business? Do you know why? Because it means, were you a giver or were you a taker? Were you godly? Were you giving? Okay. Were you honest in business? Number two is...
Did you enjoy my world?
Yes, one of them is, did you enjoy my world? Number two is, did you spend time to study Torah? To become wiser, to understand a little more of my world. You came in this world. You should have studied and learned how this world works. There's a lot of answers in the Torah. Did you study it? Did you spend time to study it? And finally, were you busy with having children? Ooh. And it doesn't say, did you have children? It says, were you busy with having children? Does anyone know what that means?
It means a couple things.
Oh, there we go. He woke up. He woke up. What does it mean? So listen to this. I'm going to, before you jump, I'll say, because I don't want this to get out of control. So the Maharsha, a great rabbi says like this. It says, Asakta bepru urvu, which means, were you busy with having children? And it does not say, did you did you actually have children? Not everyone can have children, unfortunately. Right?
You don't say marry.
Oh, so exactly. So that's true. But wait, because the point of marriage is eventually to build a family. Okay? The goal of marriage in itself is obviously to achieve love and grow. That's a mitzvah in itself. There's a mitzvah in itself of marriage. Right? But there's also an importance within marriage to take it to the next level. Every step of your life needs to take it to the next level. You are able to have children for a reason. Right? You are what we call, excuse me for saying, you are fertile for a reason. And that's because God put you in this world and you should have children at some point, right? You want to live in this world and you want to eventually look back and say, wow, I did a lot. I worked for my family. I built a family. You don't want to look back and say, I came into this world and I just ate a little bit and then, that's it, I'm out. We want to know that we live to our fullest potential. Okay? So it says, not did you actually have children, but it says, were you busy with the mitzvah of being fruitful and many? And the Maharsha, a great commentary, says, that means, did you help people find their spouse? It doesn't only mean, did you actually have children? It can also mean, did you help someone find their spouse? You can all help your friend find someone. And it can be an energy that you can give off. It doesn't actually have to be, oh wait, okay, you come out of this conversation, you're like, hey, I want to do a mitzvah of tzedakah for you. I have a girl that I'm thinking about. No, it doesn't mean that only. It means also helping someone move forward in his life to a point where he's confident, make him feel good with himself, which is another form of giving, throw some positivity to a person so that they are willing to move forward with their life, that they are confident, that they can actually go out and be confident with themselves and say, dude, you look amazing. Wow, you look brilliant. And to a point, if you build a relationship with someone where you build them up, they will be confident. That's also a mitzvah. That's also part of the mitzvah of having children. Okay? So actually, that's one of the big questions is, were you busy with the mitzvah of being fruitful and many? That's a big mitzvah in tzedakah. It's actually a hidden mitzvah that Rashi says is the mitzvah of tzedakah. Unbelievable. Okay. I want to tell you something about tzedakah and we'll finish off with this. There's a story in the Talmud. In the Talmud in Baba Batra, which we're learning right now. It says like this. There's a story during the second temple of a king by the name Munbaz. And he had a lot of money. He was a king. And he was a king from a few generations. And he had storages of money. Lots of money. Gold, everything. All locked up from many generations already. And all of a sudden, there was a famine. And he started opening up all of his storage. Everything. All his treasures. He said, we're selling everything. My place, my country is not going to go hungry. And he sold and he took out all of everything that he had. All his storage. So all his people came to him. His friends, his brothers, his family. They came to him and they said, what are you doing? His brothers came to him and his family came to him. And they said to him, what are you doing? All your fathers, all your grandfathers and all your family, they kept all this money. And now you're suddenly spending it? How can you do that? They worked so hard to save all this money. They came so wealthy. They kept all the treasures. And now you're just spending it? So he says to them, no, you don't understand. All of my fathers and grandfathers and all the generations before me, they stored the money in this world, lemata, in the lower world. But I, by giving it to others, I am storing and opening another storage in the upper worlds, in the higher worlds. As it says, that truth comes from the earth, but justice is watched from the heavens. Meaning Hashem remembers everything that's done whilst we're on earth. And I have to help everybody. So then he says, my fathers, they stored all their wealth in a place where any human being can come and take it eventually. But I stored my money by giving it out and doing tzedakah in a place that no one could take that away from me. By giving, no one can take what I gave away from me. It's a place she'en hayad sholetet bo. As it says, tzedek umishpat machon kisecha. When someone does tzedakah, that sits right next to God's throne and no one can take that away from you. Whatever you gave, no one can take from you. It's with you forever. Whatever you keep can eventually get lost. Right? How many times have you lost money? How many times have you invested money and lost it? But what you give never leaves you forever and ever. So then he says, listen to this. He says that my fathers, they kept all this money with things that don't actually have an outcome. They kept the money and they stored it, but it doesn't make things. Money doesn't make fruits. But it can make more money. But he said, I put my money, by giving it to others, in things that make fruit. Why does it Why does it make fruit? Because when you give tzedakah to others, pri ma'al alehem, it's a fruit. When you give charity to others, it has many outcomes. It's like planting a fruit. You don't even realize how far that goes. Do you know why? Because when you give money to somebody and save him in a famine, this was a time of a famine, you save that person, you are saving them, you are saving their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, all because of you. One little bit of tzedakah can save somebody for generations. So then they said, he continues, and he said, it's unbelievable. My fathers, they stored storages of money, and they kept all these little things in their place of storage or whatever it is, right? But I'm keeping souls, not money. They kept money. I am storing souls because I am saving lives. And then he says, he brings a verse because it says in Proverbs that a tzaddik, he brings life. He's the tree of life. Right? Velokeach nefashot chacham. Someone who collects souls is a wise person. What does it mean you collect souls? What does it mean someone who collects souls? Collect souls by giving people life. Right? A tzaddik, a righteous person, isn't only about accumulating stuff. He's about building lives, accumulating lives. So he says, a righteous person, he accumulates souls, not just money. And then he says, my fathers, they kept all their money, but what happened to them? They died. And who kept that money? Who did it go to? When someone dies, where does the money go to? To the inheritance. So they kept all this money and they stored it, and at the end, where did it go? To others. But me, I have now got this money and it's for me, in a spiritual sense. As it says, V'lecha tiyeh tzedakah. My fathers, they kept the money forever, for this world, but I am keeping it for the next world. Now I want to tell you something, that whilst we are in this world, we're only here for a short time. But whether it's in a relationship, or whether it's in a place of work, or whether you're anywhere else, if you become the giver in that environment, and that could be giving a compliment, it could be smiling, it could be giving money, giving time. Just if you become that giver, you will win. You will win in your relationships. You will win in every single aspect of your life. And we really believe that when somebody does tzedakah, it's something which is going out of your way. It's not like anything else. Tzedakah is money. Time is money. It's something you work for. It's something that you have. You don't have to give it to someone. When you do, you're going out of your way for them. And Judaism promises you go out of your way for them, God goes out of his way for you. That's why it's called tzedek, justice. When you give tzedakah to someone, you're bringing justice into the world. My blessing to everybody here is that you should always be givers. You should always be giving to whoever it is you're with. And giving means complimenting, and it means seeing the good in them and seeing good in the world. And you'll see that with that, you'll have a lot of good coming back your way. Amen. All right, thank you. Anyone want to say anything? Comments, thoughts? We're good. Yes.
Okay, so it has something similar to do with charity, I'm sure a lot of us have seen it. So I feel like there's like animosity among the Jewish people right now, where we ourselves know that we give so much, right? You teach us, we teach ourselves when we read about doing mitzvahs, right? And then it feels some type of way when the world doesn't appreciate us and what we have given to the world. So there's been a lot of talk on social media where there are some Jewish families that feel like they don't want to donate as much to universities or schools, or just based off of like media and how they feel like the Jewish people are being deceived. And so how do as Jews we move forward and past that? And I still like to give, but also if I see something on social media, it makes me feel this animosity. I know that you said to look away from, but how do we coach ourselves?
So I'm going to say something which might seem a little controversial. these Jews that have been giving to university shouldn't have been doing that. You give to your own brothers, your own family first, your own cousin. This is what it says. And it's considered controversial, but I don't care. Because it says like this, and it's so true. When you have poverty, it starts within your own. You fill your own cup. Where does bracha come? Right? On Shabbat. We are meant to, by the end of Shabbat, we're meant to fill our cup and make the cup overflow. Okay, so you fill your cup and overflow it outside. And it's a beautiful thing when you fill your cup within yourself and you overflow it to those that are closest to you. And it's a shame. We should be investing, obviously if I have gratitude to a school that gave me education, I give back to that school. But if it's not close to me, if it's against me, why am I giving them money? It's a shame that they're giving money to such a school. Absolutely. They are not teaching my values. They are going against my values and they are giving. So that's not a place where money should have been put. You know?
We alternate or kind of the way that we think now, or at least have maybe a different perspective now that we've seen how people.
Yes, I think that, it starts off, like it says, first it's your brother. It will be strange if you're giving money to, and this is what people do. They give money to far out organizations, but then to their own family, they may have family that are struggling. So you must start giving to a relative of yours and see if they need. And then see if people in your town, in your land, right? The Jewish people, okay? That's considered as your brother. That's not that we are wrong. That's not racist. It's actually a good thing. Everyone should be giving to their family. I'm not just talking about Jews. I'm talking about non-Jews. Give to your family first. You will be strange if you're giving to other people outside of your family. That's weird. And you're not ignoring those that are close to you. And it should start with your town. It's strange that we live in LA and there are so many wealthy people living here that are giving to causes outside of this country when there are homeless people on the streets. Now, maybe the money's going in the wrong way. Maybe they are giving money and it's just being badly governed. So something needs to be done. That's where things are wrong, right? That would be, it's even considered a certain sense as evil because it's chesed going in the wrong direction. It's like maybe you're doing it because it gives you more fame, to give to a school and have your name on the school. That's nice. So it's in a way a small form of taking. Don't get me wrong. I never undermine the power of giving. Someone gives, that's a beautiful thing. You did a mitzvah, there's no question. But, there needs to be thought with giving. And it starts with those that are closest. And a school that's bringing out all this stupid stuff that's going on college campuses, and I'm glad that I'm in a safe space to say it, right? Then why are we giving to those schools? That's just a shame. It's a waste of money. As if they don't have it, they don't have money, right? They have so much money from the government, they have money from everyone and donors, and we need to rethink where we're putting our investments in and where we're giving tzedakah to. Yeah.
So in terms of relationships, usually what I've learned is masculine energy is giving and feminine energy is receiving. So how do you balance that? How do you stay in your feminine energy within the relationship but still being a giver? If that makes sense.
So, like I said, yes, there are some attributes of taking, but imagine a relationship where one side is literally just giving and the other side is only taking. That would be very, very dangerous, right? It needs to be reciprocal. So there is a natural tendency. These are Kabbalistic terms that we use to explain the natural tendencies in the male and the female. But that doesn't mean that the female should only be taking. And even when she does take, it should be done in the form of giving. Love is reciprocal. It has to go two ways. It can't be that one side is only giving and the other side is only receiving, right? So it has to be something that both sides are doing. And they do. Each one does it in their own way. It just might be looked at as, the female's more of an internal, whilst the male's more external, and it's done in those ways. But at the end of the day, as a whole, both are giving.
It's just in different ways.
In different ways. Okay. But you're right. This is the binary of life, that everyone's either giving or taking at every moment. in every moment, everyone's either giving or taking. The question is, when you take, are you giving whilst you take?
Oh, I had a question.
Yeah.
It's a form of charity to set someone up even if it doesn't work out, or does it only count if?
Sorry, I don't get the question. So what are you saying?
Is it still considered like a
if they didn't get married.
form of charity even if you don't end up getting married?
I think that doing your part and trying, God is mitzaref machshava tova lemaaseh, which means that when it comes to being positive, God always thinks of the thought much more than the action. And when it comes to negative, it's not like that. So for instance, if you went running to your dad to give him a drink because you thought he needed it, and he says, no, I don't need the drink. According to Jewish teaching, you'll get a mitzvah as if you gave him a drink. When it comes to positive things, even if it doesn't work out, if you try, that's a great, great mitzvah to do. Okay, so that is a form of charity, even if it won't work out. Obviously, the ideal case is when they... By the way, this is the source where people say that if you set people up, a certain number of people up, it's not really based off everything, but this is where they get it from this Talmud. That if you set a certain number of people up, they say you get straight to heaven. Right? It's not true. Because you can't be evil. You can't be evil your whole life and then say, I set up 30 people. That's not going to help. Maybe you force them. You're like, hey. It's about, Judaism's always about how good of a person you are. Not just these external things. Oh, I set some people up. But they got it from this Talmud. That's where they got it from. That this Talmud says that when a person dies, it's a very important question you'll be asked is, were you involved in bringing life into the world? And one of them is setting people up. Even if not always you can have children. There are many, many people that don't have children and they move into the world of setting people up, doing shidduchim. Because they had struggles and they realized they can't have children. So they make it their point to make it their job, for free even, to set people up without payment. To do shidduchim. It's a big, big mitzvah. And by the way, I want to say that that's something that we should encourage within. You know best your friends. You know best if you go out on a date with someone and it didn't work out, you know someone that could be fitting for that person. If you know how to end it well. If you don't know how to end it well, you can't think of the person. I don't know, right? But that's also a good sign. If you date right, you can end it well and say, you know what? It didn't go for me. You're a human being. You're not just a piece of dirt because you didn't work out for me. You are a human being. I have another amazing human being just for you. I have good taste. The reason why I went out with you is because I have good taste. But we just didn't work out. But I have someone for you. I think that if within our community, meaning within the single community, that was something very strong that we all encouraged, people will really find the right one much quicker. We keep thinking of shatchanim, like we should reach out to matchmakers. And no, we are all matchmakers. Every person here is a matchmaker. Every single person here is a matchmaker. Now, it might sound a lot. Do you know what? Many people here might say, I'm not ready for that. Okay, so then be honest when you go out that you're not ready for marriage. Say it to the person you're dating. Be honest. But if you are really willing to date for the right reasons, then people should be setting up. I think that will be a beautiful thing. Every person you set up with someone else, you do a great mitzvah. It's a great form of tzedakah. Who's ready to set someone up? You thinking of anyone? Huh? Or only yourself? It says that if you want good on someone else, God brings that good on you. I believe that if everyone was busy setting other people up and helping each other out, actually, more good will come your way. As opposed to everyone on their own. It's like a market, we're all trying. It's like when we went to Malibu and everyone's fishing. And there's one guy fishing here, and he's getting annoyed because the other guy's just close here, so he's trying to fish, right? That's what it's like, in these events. I'm going after that girl, and that's when I'm going after that guy. But if it's an environment which is very helpful to each other, that would be good. Not everyone's able to fish very well. Some people fish better than others, right? But it's about actually bringing the fish home. not just taking it and throwing it back in the water. Okay, getting married. Okay, but I think that's a great mitzvah. That was actually the whole point of why I wanted to give over this speech, which is that it's really important to know that tzedakah and kindness is not only about money, it's actually in other areas of life also. L'chaim, brother. Oh, you got a beer?